I think it's recording. All right. Hi, listeners, Marquette University and beyond. I'm Tom Oeffling with Marquette University Radio. Today I'm joined by Rick Maguire from Pile.
How's it going?
It's good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, doing
Good.
well.
That was pretty. We already went through to the listeners at home. We already went through the how you're doing. So, that was who knows. But I know you've been extremely busy recently. Just got off a Rick from Pile tour. Before
hmm
that, a Pile tour.
hmm
So I mean, I just wanted to ask, like, I mean, you're relaxing. What are we working on right now? If we're working on anything, or and kind of generally, how was that tour?
It was good. It was good. Yeah, the solo tour was fun. I mean, it was kind of designed to be a trip around the holidays. My folks live in Nashville, so
Hmm.
my wife runs sound for both the band and when I play solo. So we just took a trip down to Nashville, hung with the folks for a couple of days, and then sort of, the plan was to we went to Austin for New Year's and then circled our way back up to Boston, just kind of also to try to get out of the Northeast for a couple of weeks in the wintertime. And yeah, it was good. It was good. It was really fun. It's a different vibe from the full band touring for sure.
Hmm.
Um, which is cool because I think with full band shows I can't I have a more difficult time making myself available socially. But doing the solo stuff, I can hang out a little bit more at the merch table and talk to people and all that. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, so that's all been good. And then we're just kind of getting back to practicing regularly and working on some new material. So that's fun.
Do you find generally, I mean, just historically, or do you typically position Rick from Pile tours close to after full band tours like this, or was this kind of, I mean, just a different experience with going around for the holidays?
So I usually try to do, for releasing music, doing like the full band stuff right after, and then I'll do sort of solo stuff in the off months when the band's looking to take more of a break. So the holiday stuff, I mean, I've tried to do, shows around in the wintertime anyways, just to go to the southeast to get out of the north to just get a little warmer. But yeah, it varies. It varies. I do it mostly to stay busy and to make a little extra money. Or that's why I started doing it anyways. And it's become a really fun thing that is, I feel like is complementary to the full band touring because it's just a totally different vibe. But yeah, the priority lies with doing full band shows.
Mhm.
So whenever, it just kind of was coincidental because the band wasn't as interested in, because we had had such a busy year of touring in 2023 and we had the plans to just drop singles leading up to the EP release. I figured it would be good to do some shows around the release of the EP. So better solo than not at all.
And then, I mean, regarding the solo tours, just because I know with the band, but also solo, like Pyle's been a project that's never afraid to do a different iteration of a song live. And I'm asking purely out of curiosity, just because I wasn't able to go to a show on
Mhm.
the solo tour. But I go as far and say any person who's a fan of Pyle has seen the Church of the Covenant performance. But
Mm.
is there any other songs, like newer songs that you've been playing on the solo tour with different iterations that you'd like to highlight, basically any kind of recreations of the songs in a live context that
Sure.
we're
Yeah.
excited to play out?
Yeah, I think that I mean with writing the most recent material too, I was kind of hoping that the majority of it anyways would work in multiple contexts. There were some that I didn't have enough time to work on to get them to a place where I thought that they would be presentable, but I would say that in my eyes, the most interesting one was Link Arms.
Mhm.
To do that solo because it's very, I mean, the chorus of the song is very drum heavy. And it's just like a yeah. So because there weren't any drums, and I would just do sort of like an eerie version of it. But I liked it. I thought it worked. Um, and Forgetting was another one of the new material that because I have the setup for those that don't know is like I have excuse me a synthesizer um and that is mostly being controlled by my feet because I have like a foot pedal that I'm using and I also have like a looper that has like stored loops on it.
Hmm.
So using basically those three textures primarily, I'll sometimes use something else on the synthesizer, but it's usually like bass notes from the feet, me playing guitar, and then there being some kind of loop. And I can control the volume of that. And so with that, I try to reconstruct the songs with those there.
Hmm. So, and then I have one question, kind of just wrap up the touring side of things. I just have
Mhm,
to ask because Marquette University, city of Milwaukee.
mhm,
So on the last full band tour, came to Milwaukee.
mhm.
I have two simple questions about this. One, if you remember, where did you eat?
In Milwaukee, oh, you know, um, okay. So the most recent time when we played Cactus Club, I think that we had just loaded in and there's like a little grocery store across the street and I just grabbed some stuff.
I've been there, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I just grabbed some stuff and made, I don't know if it was like, I probably just grabbed some spinach and some tempeh and just with some hot sauce or something.
Hmm.
And then, but I do remember we went there in 2019 and we played Collectivo.
Yeah, back room, yeah. That doesn't
Yeah.
exist anymore. I don't know if you know that, but
Oh, that's a
yeah,
bummer. That was a cool spot.
yeah, Pep's Theater Group rebranded it, or not rebranded, but they set up a new kind of like venue space with the same capacity. It's called a Vivarium, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean that place had they had some good drinks anyways, good like coffee drinks and things.
Hmm.
And there was a spot because we stayed at my buddy's house the last time we were in Milwaukee. In the morning, remember we got breakfast sandwiches and coffee, but and it was like right on the corner, but I don't remember the name of the spot. It was a pretty happening place, so there was like ton of people working and it was very busy.
Hmm.
It's a pretty big spot. But anyways, yeah, I don't remember the name.
Totally fine. And then, I mean, I was just, is this past tour, has that been your first time playing Cactus Club?
We played there in 2017 as well.
Gotcha. It's cool, right?
It
Like,
is, yeah, it's a great spot. I think that it was, the first time we played there, which was 2017, we didn't realize that the upstairs was like an apartment that you could actually stay in.
yeah.
Um, yeah, pretty that's a great feature. It's a great feature of any venue when the band can stay there. Uh, yeah.
Mhm. So now I have, you know what? Yeah, let's talk about new material real quick. And then I have more geekier niche questions to wrap up with. So to talk about Hot Air Balloon, just because. So when I was listening to it when it came out, and I've listened to it like a few times since then, I found that like so on the Spotify for artists like artist pick, it says that it's simply songs that didn't fit on All Fiction, which for
Mm-hmm.
the listeners, All Fiction is the newest record.
Mm-hmm.
Hot Air Balloon is the EP to come out after. But I found that it still feels like a distinctive body of work.
Mm.
Now, when selecting the tracks to go on Hot Air Balloon, I mean, would you attribute this to them just being from the All Fiction sections, or was there more work into putting together Hot Air Balloon than just simply songs that didn't fit on All Fiction?
Um, I mean, it really mostly was that. I think because we recorded all 15 at the same time. We mixed them at different times though. So
Mm-hmm.
that may have uh I feel like the vocals are a little bit more upfront and drier in than on All Fiction. Um, so that definitely, at least to my ears, makes them feel distinct from each other. But but yeah, I mean, we worked on them all at once. There's a lot of songs on All Fiction. I mean, especially looking back, I had it so um firmly in my mind, which like there were a few songs on All Fiction that very firmly in my mind I knew needed to be on it because I felt like that they were,
Which
and a lot of those songs, they it's not necessarily because they were quote unquote the best or but because they made some kind of a statement about the whole thing. They were like either weirder or more experimental or pushed things in a direction that we hadn't gone before. So it was important to me that those were represented on there. I wouldn't want them just sort of like as stragglers on an EP, whereas the EP felt like these songs could all be released as singles, and it would be not because they're all like just because the format of them, you could listen to it front to back and be like, okay, that feels like a complete thought.
mhm.
Whereas a song like Link Arms, for example, or Lowered Rainbow, if you were to hear that, if we just released those as singles, it'd be like, and Green and Gray was the last thing we released, which was like very much like a rock record. It would just feel very strange.
Mhm.
I would be like, what is this like synth song? You know, these two songs that don't have any guitars on them. So that was kind of the thinking, is that just the ones in the EP felt very much more like they each one of them could be released as singles. Where there were a bunch on All Fiction, it was like there's no way.
So it's funny that you bring up the synths because I have a little segment coming up where just through looking on Reddit, my own opinions, talking to friends of mine who are fans of the band, there's like three distinct movements or changes throughout Pyle's length. And
Hmm.
one of them I had is the introduction of more synths as the band has gone on over time. Which I mean,
Hmm.
it really like picks like if you count Sphere Filled Room as a band release,
Mm.
I don't know, do you? Or
I mean, it's sort of like I don't. This is it gets a little hairier. There's like four releases that the band has that are on LPs that like I don't even know if I really consider them like studio albums. Like
are you saying
there's
the first two or
what's that?
are you saying the first two or no?
A demonstration. I feel like I mean, while I wanted it to be like a full length album, it still is like I don't know. I because I recorded it myself and it does like I mean it's called demonstration, like it is just like a full length demo. Um, but that I would say like the solo album, the songs known together alone, the odds and ends, just because those were all released as like singles and EPs, that it is just sort of a and and in the corners of a sphere filled room. All of those I wouldn't put in the same category just because the rest of them are very much like we went to the studio for an amount of time. This is a document of that time period, and those fall outside of that.
Mhm.
Um, so I do consider it like a full band release. It's like one of the more unconventional releases that we have.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the most unconventional of our releases.
Mhm. So then, like, I mean, just going off of that, with the introduction of more synths as the band has gone on, if you can pinpoint it, where has that come from? Because I remember seeing an interview when you came out with "You're Better Than This," and it was just I think you said something about you wanted to just see how much you could get away with in a rock band format.
Hmm.
Now, like I've seen as it's the band has progressed, which could come with just experimentation over time, but where do you think just more of a tendency or reliance or just interest in using synthesizers comes from?
Um, I think. I mean, I think my taste's changing a little bit. I think, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that that's kind of mostly it. I think that also, with You're Better Than This, that just we having released Dripping and then being like, okay, well, I do like this format of, there's two guitars now. It's like every instrument can have its own voice and they can kind of all be doing their own things and maybe still make us, a coherent song out of doing that. So it was like wanted to explore that as much as possible. But then following that record, we did like the most touring that we had ever done. We did like 9 weeks of touring. We did a 9 week tour followed by like a week off. Then we did 10 days of touring, then 3 days off. Then we did a month in Europe. And I think the combination of like all of the touring and just being so immersed in like guitar rock world, whether it was us playing or just playing with other bands who did that, it was like, all right, I feel like I need some kind of a palate cleanser. I need to do something else. So I think that that started some of it. And then Hair Shirt after that, there's like more strings and acoustic guitars and things like that. So that was more starting to use the studio a little bit more and play like more piano and things like that. So um, I think it was a slow transformation. I had wanted to use the studio more often or like more as like to create more of a vibe with different instruments and things like that. But resource wise, it was still like if we're going to go on tour, we are you know, we're still going to have the same setup. We can't I can't afford to just like buy a synth. So
Mhm.
um or like if I could have, I wouldn't have known really where to start. So but in 2019, I decided to start taking the time to do that.
Nice. And then I kind of feel with just the new releases, but more so, um, there's somebody yelling out in the hallway right now. I apologize if that gets in.
Oh no, it's all good.
So I have noticed just with an increase in synths, there is that vibe change that you were talking about. And
Hmm.
especially with Hot Air Balloon, listening to it, I found like in terms of it feeling like its own distinctive body of work, like I felt said earlier, like the songs have a lot of themes of I mean the whole thing kind of has a very anxious feel to it and it's frenzied in a way. And there's a lot of themes, I guess, the way I'm reading it, of I mean, paranoia, anxiousness, kind of being trapped on a lot of songs come out that. So I
Hmm.
guess I'm asking, do you think the changes in instrumentation are like aiding that? And also, I mean, if you're one to talk about lyrics, where is it coming from in terms of inspiration or everyday life or anything?
Um, I've I feel like as far as like the synths aiding it, I don't know if that's necessarily because you know, I've writing songs has just sort of incidentally become a vehicle for a lot of anxiety, whether it's like an expression of it for things that I'm experiencing outside of playing music or the pressure that I put on myself to actually do it. It's it ends up showing up a lot. Sometimes really compulsively. Like it's not like a deliberate thing. It's like, well, I got to write lyrics to this thing, and that's just kind of what ends up coming out. Even if it's just like me writing a song about trying to write a song. Um, so yeah, I don't know. And as far as where that comes from, um, like I said, that there's a good amount of it that is just like pressure on myself to, now that this is my job, it's like there's a lot, riding on this. And I think that there have been times that I've thought that just like if only I could write the right song, then things would be easier. Which, like I now know, is not that's not true. Um, or if it is true, like I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to like I wouldn't know until somebody responded to it afterwards. So,
Mhm.
uh, but I can't like engineer something that's just going to be uh, that is very specifically going to like pay my rent. Um, but I mean, then there's other parts of it of just the state of the world, which I feel like was probably more of a played a bigger role in this last batch of material than uh, the anxiety that I expressed in previous records.
Mhm.
Um, I think that the just the yeah, just the state of the world. I mean, there's really like a lot of places that I could point. It's like politically, socially, uh, just feeling uneasy and unsettled about where things are going, and and yeah, just like the sort of in a lot of cases the inadvertent participation in a lot of those things that you really only find out like a little bit after you've been doing it, that it's been like built into your daily routine or built into your life, or things that you just generally assume, and then you're like, oh, this is actually uh, this is terrible either on a human rights level or on an environmental level, or um, so that those just trying to wrestle with those things in a way that both feels honest and also isn't too um, preachy, I guess I'd say, because I do rely on abstraction a lot to address those things.
Mhm. Because I find exactly what you said with it being multiple topics in terms of that anxiousness. And that what you said, I think, funnily enough, completely answered one of my questions, which is in regards to the second movement in Pile's band history, which I don't know if you have you ever read the YouTube comments on the Church of the Covenant performance?
I've read a couple. They're very flattering.
There's one in particular from Love Lodge 0149, wherever you are. Uh, that says after You're Better Than This, Rick started writing absolutely devastating lyrics. Hair Shirt is already a difficult listen as is, but hearing the lyrics so clearly enunciated in this setting puts them on a whole nother level. But I found universally a lot of people on the internet commenting about it, people who listen to your music that I personally know, find a lot of solace through your depictions of that, um, the anxieties of everyday life and those general topics. So, I guess yeah, thank you for talking about that because that was yeah.
For sure. Yeah, happy to.
But that comment when I was reading that, I was just scrolling through listening to it. That took me out. I was like, wow, that's Love Law Zero, whatever.
hmm
And then, so I mean, I have one more thing kind of to talk about. And so, Rick, I don't know if you know this, but you have one of the most stacked rhythm sections in all of music. Um, and so I kind of want to talk about the origins of that. Why, why after having it be a solo project for a few years, getting that band, and then I know you got to remind me of it's Alex Molini on bass, correct?
Yeah.
So like picking up the rhythm section because I know Chris and Alex are like so intertwined with exploding in sound and also just the general Boston, but I think Philadelphia scene too as well, right?
Um, Not really. I mean, we recorded Dripping in Philly,
Uh-huh.
but beyond that, I mean, we've just played in Philly a bunch of times, but
Gotcha. Is that where exploding in sound is now? Or
no, I mean, technically, they started in Brooklyn, but they're now in Jersey City.
gotcha. Okay, I digress. But anyway, so kind of I was just wondering what made you really sit there. Actually, no, I want to go back a bit because we have a little bit of time here. Why did Pile start? I haven't found any information on this. What made you want to do it?
Well, I was in a band from when I was 19 to 23, named Hell Toro,
Mhm.
and it was with Dave and Aaron Silverstein, two brothers, and I. It was a very democratic project. So as far as writing goes, like I had been working on writing stuff since I was, I don't know, since I was like 12. Um, so I was familiar with writing music. And so when we would get together to write stuff, it was sort of like we would write everything together. So it was I would, someone would bring an idea and we would just shape it. And it was like my first serious band. And through that though, I mean, I remember there's the genre of music that was like okay to play in that band was it felt in some ways limited to me. So I wanted to make something where it was like this was my own space to do like whatever I wanted. I could if I wanted to write a song that was like this, there was no one that would be like, I don't feel so great about that section. It's like I could just go for it. So I made that space for myself, and then the band dissolved, and so I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna try to do this and try to have this be the vehicle for my creative expression. And so then I and in 2009 I did Jerk Routine, which is like there's drums on it and stuff, but still mostly folkier kinds of songs, mainly because that's how I was performing. That's like how I could go play shows. Like I just bring an acoustic guitar and just do what I was doing. But I wanted to tour with a band because I knew that was, or I felt that was like a compelling way to present these songs. And I knew that there's like an energy that translates when you have a bunch of people playing the songs loudly. So um, I knew Chris from we worked together at a Trader Joe's, and I was told that he played drums. So I just asked him if he wanted to jam sometime. And Matt Becker, who is the first bassist, we'd been playing shows together for a while. His old band Margin Walker was we were old friends, and he was down to play the song. So it was that's the three of us who we toured on Jerk Routine in 2009, and then recorded Magic Isn't Real in 2010. So yeah, and then from that point, there's been a bunch of lineup changes and things like that. But Alex been a friend for a long time, and yeah, he was willing to play bass in the band. So and Chris, yeah, Chris has been along ever since, which is great. I'm very grateful for that. Um, yeah, so Chris and Alex are yeah they've grown pretty locked in with each other, and yeah.
I on that. Oh, okay. Zoom gave me a little thing. Never mind. Anyway,
Mhm.
so off that, just talking about the band, I I remember I was bored one day and I had nothing to do, so I just walked to Cactus Club and back from campus, which is far. Um, and
Hmm.
Worms came up on my something like probably a Spotify radio or something. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
this is good. So I thought like I'd listen to the whole Hair Shirt album on the walk. Hissing for Peace comes on. I think I accidentally had replay on because of the
Yeah.
because it didn't. And then I was like, just that pure juxtaposition. I was like, what am I getting myself into listening to this album right now? And I guess with what you said, with that first band feeling limited in terms of genre expression or what the music sounded like, what did it feel like for you in the moment gathering a group of musicians around you that were willing to have that diversity in music and growing with them over time? What has that been like for you?
It's been extremely rewarding. And yeah, I know that I've been like pushing things out in as many directions as I can. I mean, that's really what the last record, why it was so important to me, was because it really did feel like I could, we'd always been put in this, even as much as I would try to do songs that were very mellow and then do songs that were really loud, it was like everyone thought that it was just we were a loud band. That was what it was. We were still just like a loud rock band. That was what defined us. And I don't know. I still felt compelled to try to defy that as a label. So like doing the last record was like, this is not a loud rock band. There's a couple loud rock songs on it, but like there's also not all mellow songs either. So it's extremely important to me. Yeah, it's a feeling of freedom to be able to explore and to have people that are willing to sort of ride with you on that. Um, so that has been really rewarding to be able to explore all those things
Mhm.
without it being like, oh well, you can't do that because that's not the kind of band that we are. So
And then I guess going off of that, because I mean, I've seen Fugazi as an influence, I've seen Bad History Month as an influence, but
mhm.
Pile is a project that is a lot more than that in terms of the different genres, the willingness to try new things with the music you make. So I'm curious, what are influences of yours personally that you think somebody would not expect? And this could be a musical influence, it could be a non-musical influence. But what's somebody that I mean, you either take a lot from in everyday life or the music you make, and you don't think somebody would expect it when listening to a Pile record?
Oh man, that's a tough question because it feels to me at this point like my influences are pretty transparent, but um I'm trying to think of one that seems like it would be unexpected. Um, I mean, okay, I would say that as far as recently, and I mean, this is not really like digging too deep or obscure in really any way, but um, Kendrick Lamar, I would say that his artistry is unparalleled, and so hopefully by you know listening to his music, that I can it's like obviously I'm not going to make a Kendrick Lamar record, but it's like the way that he thinks about music. Hopefully, I can learn a lesson or two about that by the way that he creates it. So that's someone. I don't know. There's a lot of. I mean, and this probably isn't that surprising either, given the last record, but a lot of ambient music. Um, and jazz. Yeah, I guess like the is it Duke Ellington's Far East Suite is probably one of my favorite albums. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, it's difficult to know what will be the least expected again because it feels like at this point I've whenever I do something that's like a nod to a certain thing, I just assume that it is very obvious.
Well,
Uh,
it's not to me. What were some of the influences other than I guess what you said with ambient, what you said already, the unexpected ones, but like I all fiction and hot air balloon are records to me that don't sound like a lot of other stuff ever, at least with my musical knowledge. Like what do you think your transparent influences are, if you're willing to say
For
that?
sure. Sure. I would say that Radiohead is absolutely one.
Okay.
Um, I would say that Portishead, maybe less so, but still there. And like, yeah, PJ Harvey and Bjork and I mean, yeah, I guess mostly those ones.
Mhm.
Those. those are the ones that I feel like are pretty like people can hear it when certain oh like it sounds like this band. So um and I mean I think that maybe some classical influences too. Like I think Debussy and uh Chopin. Like there's a I mean maybe there's also some stuff that I'm just like still working on that feels like it's more like I'm like direct references to certain classical pieces. Um, but yeah, I'd say that those ones are like the heavy hitters for me
Mhm.
musically. I'm always looking for new stuff, but those are the ones that I keep going back to.
Gotcha. And then I guess I mean that might be all I got for you. One last thing with a little bit we have left. Any parting thoughts to the listeners that made it this far? Any parting thoughts to people in general, music, whatever you want to say?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I appreciate anyone who's listened to the music. I appreciate the support to continue to be able to do this because it's very meaningful to me to this is something that I've wanted to do since I started writing songs when I was 12. So the fact that there are people that are interested in what I have to say is is pretty cool. So I appreciate you listening to the music and listen to what I think about it.
Awesome. Well, this has been Rick Maguire from Pile. Once again, I'm Tom Effling. Thank you for listening. And I'm not good with outros, but yeah, there it is.